And so with movies, it's amazing. Like I love movies. I love to watch movies. And when my brother is a big movie critic because he is a screenwriter. And so when I began to write the script that I started, it was based off of his influence. He influenced me big time. I started playing lacrosse because of my brother. And he told me, he was like, you got to see Get Out. And he's very critical when it comes to movies because he's really good at writing scripts. He's really good at it. And so he's the one who kind of put me on to like cinematography and how a lot of thought and really attention goes into creating a film, and how people who have studied cinema are very learned about what symbolism it occurs within their movies. So for example, heavy rain means internal conflict within the characters. And there are all of these underlying meanings, and you can really go very deep with this. And so, as a mother, you know, what I always encourage my son to do is really don't take things for face value and always, you know, dig deeper, ask the right questions. And I try to talk to him about everything under the sun. This past weekend, we were talking about the election, and I told him that in my opinion, the numbers shouldn't have been that close based off of the optics from the media and based off of a lot of the things that we saw over the past 4 years, how we had a general perception that everybody hated Trump. And the numbers just at the, you know, when the ballots came out, they looked too close for that to really be the reality. So I said, what does that mean? Like, always think deeper. And I'm always encouraging him to be an intellectual and to think deeper and to analyze things a little deeper. And so he tells me, because he's underage, obviously he's not 18, and he says that he went online and he put me on to this website where it's like almost like the Cliff Notes from movies. And he said he did the analysis of Get Out. And I said, oh, you know, I was watching Get Out the other day. And he was like, yeah, I went on. And because I heard it was such a good movie, I looked online to find out what it was all about. And I said, well, what was it all about? And he broke it down, like, perfectly. I'm like, my little prodigy. And he was basically, yeah, like, it's about mind control. And it's about, like, black body, white mind. I'm like, pretty much, you know, like, more or less. There's symbolism with the deer. There's a lot of symbolism, you know. And my only wish, because the movie was so incredible, was that it was a little bit longer. And it attributes to the genius of Jordan Peele that he can have such diversity and create comedies and also create movies like Us and Get Out, you know. But I derive again. So, Get Out. Devil's advocate, how does this relate? Well, in the Quran, I believe it's Hadith, which is basically stories of the Prophet, right? So they say to be a model Muslim is to follow the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And the Hadiths are examples of his life and how he lived his life, to have a good life and to go to paradise and to be in favor with Allah. And it says in the Hadiths that the Prophet was so powerful that he turned his jinn into a believer. What is a jinn? A jinn is essentially a demon. A jinn is somebody who is a being that tempts people, that you know, whispers in people's ears, you know, if spells and curses, and really is just like basically a representative of the devil, the representative of the shaitan, that's really here to allure you away from being in alignment with, you know, the Almighty's purpose for you and the destiny, the righteous destiny, and really wants to keep you focused on your lower nature. And so I bring this up to say, in Get Out, you know, you notice that the people who had the operation, they had this cut on their forehead where basically he was taking their minds out and he was putting a different mind in them. And how deep it got, you know, where with contemporary technology, I think that maybe generations back, it might have been an easier process to do the right thing, but this bombarding of not just like influencing people to do the wrong thing, but actually like proactively like trying to put people under like mind control in theory, right? It makes it more difficult for people to really do the right thing, right? So Get Out was really about having your mind taken over. And in the movie, it was like the guy was physically doing operations, but in a less obvious form, I guess you could say that we're being mentally programmed by like our culture. We're being mentally programmed by an indoctrination. Like our minds are being taken from us. And a brain that you thought that you were operating you're really being programmed. So you don't even, the belief system that you have is not really even organically yours, if you understand what I mean. And that also, once you have the mind, the soul can kind of follow right along. And so, where am I going with this? Just like there's a war, right? Anybody because I don't want to get too abstract and too spiritual in this discussion. I want people to be able to follow. But anyone who grew up in Christianity or grew up in a monotheistic religion, there is this idea that there is a war for your soul. Right? We can all kind of follow that as far as just like the concept, not getting too spiritual in this, too abstract in this, but we can get the concept that there is this war for your soul, right? But people who are very, very powerful, like the programming is that the shaitan has more power than Allah. That's how we're kind of raised. That's our belief system in this society. When I emphasize, it's the actual opposite. It's the total opposite, because the devil is described as weak and wicked. So that's the reason why, like, so many souls have to be collected. And if you'll notice, some of the most powerful people, the most spiritual people, had like a lot of people against them. So what does that mean? That meant that it took so many people to try to bring them down, to try to orchestrate their demise, so on and so forth. I've raised this point before when we talk about Malcolm X. That same Malcolm X that was on 24-hour surveillance also was able to transform a lot of people to the other side through his power, through his profound rhetoric. So just like the prophet, peace be upon him, he was able to make the demons into believers. And that was kind of what the premise of the nation was doing. They were transforming these people. So it was the addicts and all of the people who were quote unquote, the illegitimates of society whose mind was possessed with things that weren't godly. They were able to transform their minds. And so we have to believe in ourselves, and we have to understand that we have power. And that's the reason why I try my best not to write anybody off, because if you really see yourself as a powerful person, you don't fear your lower nature. You don't fear other people, like demons and other people or wicked people and things like that. You just look at it as a part of life, and you understand that you actually have the power to transform that. So I say this to say that we are very powerful people. We are spiritual people having a human experience, and never forget and never neglect your power, and understand that you do have power to transform lives. But the number one priority is your own. Until next time, IG.